do. And today we get my bookshelves as a backdrop. I think maybe about 7 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, I did do a bookshelf tour. It's changed a lot since then, since I'm unhauling 5 to 10 books a week, because whatever I read, I unhaul. And sometimes I just, when I haul, because I haul every single week too, almost, I decide, okay, this is a book I probably, I like to, just use the space that I have, and not take up more space. So my book hauling and book thrifting and book distributing into little free libraries and trading is as much, if not more, part of a hobby that I have as reading. However, I am an avid reader. I was asked today at the Friends of the Library, where I made a pretty large haul, do you read all these books? And I said, most, yes. You can guarantee I'll have it read probably within a year, and maybe sooner. And they're like, when do you find the time? Do you skim? And I thought those were really good questions. If I had the kind of YouTube channel where people were talking with me in comments and stuff, which maybe one day I will, or maybe it'll be so out of fashion by the time I get around to actually wanting to spend more time on it and or edit, it'll be gone. The ship will have sailed. But anyway, that was a digression, of course. Here's what I had to say. They asked the people who, we all know each other by name there. I go there every week at the Friends of the Library bookstore, my local. And they asked, do you skim? And I said, sometimes, if it's something like that doesn't require too much headspace, I don't carefully annotate. I don't think skimming is the right word, but it depends on what you mean by skim. If you mean just skip entire swaths of the text, probably not, unless there's unless it's a book that I'm really enjoying, say for the plot, and then there's swaths of description that I'm not really that into. Okay, I can be selective, but I can also sort of not pay full attention to a book if it doesn't require my full attention. The same way that how I listen while I'm sitting on the bus to audiobooks perhaps is a little bit different than when I'm driving, because when I'm driving, I need to have my concentration is in fact somewhere else, because I have to not crash the car. So I try, for instance, if I'm really into an audiobook, I don't do it while I drive commute. I prefer to listen to short stories or essays or things that I can kind of push pause on, or notice that I didn't pay attention to that story, so go back and listen. But it's harder to find your place, for instance, in a novel when, someone does something in traffic and it requires way more of your attention than just kind of cruising along. Long-winded way to say, I could talk to, and do actually talk about every book that I read. I could talk in detail. Of course, I don't on sort of my YouTube book and reviews, because that would be a lot of spoilering. But for instance, if I was in a book club, I feel quite confident on 100% of the books that I read that I would have something substantive to say. So if by scanning means you just, pick a few pages and then skip the rest, no. It depends on how into the book I am. Also, how quickly I go. Sometimes I have to reread. This is true of everybody, right? Sometimes a page needs more of my focus concentration, so I actually have to really stay focused and that read slower. Other times I'm just really gripped by the words in the story, and I'm not even sure. I don't even try. I lose control of everything else, and I'm just in the story, and however fast that's going, and I understand that it's faster than a lot of other people, but maybe slower than others too, then I go ahead and just stay in it as long as I can until something interrupts me, whether it's, my eyes need a break, or a phone call, or whatever that looks like. I have a very large haul. I've hauled from 3 sources. I traveled to Portland, Oregon. I went to their Friends of the Library. I also went to a local Goodwill there, and got just a few books, actually. I was pretty discerning, and I'm getting to the place that I can be more discerning at Goodwills, but also there's great books every time I go. There's great books. And I mean, great is totally depends on the reader as well. There's the kind of books I like, literary fiction books, that have either contemporary, still have relevance, or are kind of, new and or out of print, which is also a stellar find if you're looking for something like some of the ones I'm going to show you. And I always find something interesting. I love thrifting. I have a lot of books now. You can see my shelves. So oftentimes you see a lot of the repeated books. It probably whatever's trendy and popular, and probably the same trends that you saw at bookstores, like 5 years later, you're going to see in thrift shops. So I mean, I don't need to buy another copy of the book if I already have it. So depending on how much I haul in, say, a thrift store, depending on where the thrift store is, I can't say that they're still not stellar finds. It just, A, I'm more discerning, and B, I have more books. Friends of the Portland Library, I became a friend. I became a friend of the Multnomah Library. And my local Friends of the Library, which, I mean, literally, this is why they had to have that conversation with me today. They're like, do you need a box for all those books? And I'm like, please, if I ever need a box leaving here, someone needs to say, cut that in half. You'll be back next week. Let's start with the thrift shop, because there are older books. And this I thought was like why we thrift for books. This is the Wind Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami. And this will be my third Murakami. The other two I actually found in Little Free Libraries. Kafka on the Shore I found several times in what I'm going to call a Little Free Library experience while traveling abroad, which was like the little bookshelf at hotels, hostels, that people trade their books in. And I found it in English. I found it in other languages as well. Kafka on the Shore. I had a copy of Kafka on the Shore, but I didn't have it with me. I just read it digitally while I was in Tokyo. It was a great read. I cannot say that I'm a Murakami fan, but what I can say is I appreciate his writing, and I'm definitely, it's worth giving this third book a try. And I think no matter what, of course, don't haul a book that you're not interested in reading at all. But I think for a lot of folks who are into lit fic, finding a Murakami, I think this and the other books I'm about to show you were somebody's like, they took a college class maybe. The kind of writing that's in here really is resemblant of the kind of notes or annotations that would be happening if somebody was reading this as part of a lit class. Let me see. This book, I don't have any idea what it's about because I don't like to necessarily look up those kinds of things. I'm now familiar with Murakami's style after 2 books, so I can say that it's 1997. Okay, anyway, this will be shelved, and I'll get to it when I get to it. These 2 books are the books that make me pause and wonder, would it be okay in my paradigm of 100% unhauling if I just didn't unhaul Louise Erdrich and maybe Toni Morrison? Like a couple select authors that I can say, you know what, they're books that I will want to reread at different times in my life and or just have around. Like if I had a small collection that I could move around with, would I take Louise and Toni? Probably. Would I then be somehow sad for whatever reason that I unhauled La Rose and the other Louise Erdrich book that I've read in the last year? Maybe. But the truth is both of those, no, La Rose came from a Little Free Library. And I think Little Free Library books are destined to go back into Little Free Libraries. So I can justify that. And it'll come, like another option will come back to me if what I want to do is keep my Louise Erdrich collection. Maybe you can see it. It's here. That's, yeah, the sentence is right there. The big red is right there. There are 4 books there, plus these 2, so 6 books. So let's talk about these books a little bit. Love Medicine is maybe her classic upon classic. This definitely, absolutely, it's actually, there has no digital version, so I'm just going to have to read this in sunlight or natural light. and or with some reading glasses or both. I'm seeing it pretty fine, and the light right now isn't okay. So, but it's not always about seeing, it's about getting headaches. Anyway, this was from an English 243 class taken in 2002. This book is from the early 1990s, maybe 1993. I could look it up. And, you know, kind of, I don't think it's her first. It's for sure not her first. But it's absolutely, no, not even close to her first. But, oh, maybe it is her first. It put her on the map of literary greats, of American literary greats. The next book I'm probably going to read in November. I think this is the one. And I know I recently hauled it. But if I do, in fact, choose to start unhauling, I feel better about unhauling this one than some of these other ones that I just keep not reading because I don't want to unhaul them. Anyway, that's Tales of Burning Love. This came out in the late 90s. Somebody did some annotation with tabs, and interestingly enough, there's also a Coldwater Creek flyer that was used as a bookmark in the middle of this book. Yeah, I think for Native American Heritage Month, this will be my selection. So wait to see it in a future TBR, perhaps. All right, now let's talk about books that are from the Portland Central Library, Friends of the Library bookstore. They do a great job. It's a really boutique-y little place. And, I mean, usually the Central Library's little bookstores are pretty boutique-y, and they sell merch as well as really well-curated kind of modern books or relevant books. I got a book just because of its cover. We all know I just unhauled all of my romance, saying I'm done with romance, and then I just hold a romance. So, okay, just to let you know, I get books because of their cover, and I also will give any genre another chance. I just know that mood impacts reading so much, and I'll never be like, oh, I can't wait to read my tropey romancy thing. I don't think. But can I appreciate a romance? Is a romance the right thing for me at a certain time in my life? Perhaps. This is a beautiful book called The Ties That Tether by Jane Ngaro. It's going to be a display book. I think in my front room I have a couple books that have been on display for a while, and I want to take them off display and get them in kind of more up and coming TBRs, because I feel like also I don't read my display books because I like how they look. So that's my romance. I also just really, I'm interested in trying Lily King, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about Lily King in a minute. But Writers and Lovers, this is Writers and Lovers by Lily King. And I don't know anything about the book. I know a little bit about Lily King as an author. And she has another book, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, that was long listed for the Women's Prize for Fiction. And the Women's Prize for Fiction currently just announced its panel of judges. So I have about, I think I said in my last video, like maybe 20, now this stack more, Women's Prize for Fiction long list, short list books and winners that I would like to just start infiltrating into some of my piles of possibilities. So November, I'll try to read a few. I'm going to try to read a few of the ones that I've had for a while, that have been on my shelf longer than others. Because, and a couple of them are those display books. Replacing then one of the display books will be this, Writers and Lovers. I just really love this book cover. And I decided to haul this for those two reasons. I love this book cover, and I knew I wanted to give Lily King a try. Speaking of the Women's Prize for Fiction, I believe maybe it was the winner. was The Tiger's Wife. If not, it was shortlisted by Tia Obrecht. Tia Obrecht is an American author, I think born in former Yugoslavia, and I think that's the setting of this book. This is my second book by her. At the my local Friends of the Library, I have Inland, and it's actually a signed copy of a book by her. So I think that this book will, I'm excited to have this book, and the reason that I hauled it is because the Women's Prize for Fiction was forefront of my mind. I was just kind of looking through some of their catalog and recognized this to be one of the books. Likewise, this is now my third Rachel Kushner. This is The Flamethrowers. Interesting enough, this was on my summer reading, and I had it recommended to me by somebody. I just didn't get to it in the summer. I had extremely lofty goals in the summer. And then, of course, read a lot. I read, 45 or 42 books over the summer. But I also traveled and did a lot of other things. So this was her Women's Prize for Fiction. I have another book that is going to be in my booker pile, but this will then, sit on the shelf next to the Mars room until I infiltrate in the Women's Prize for Fiction. And then, no, this was the winner. Yeah, this was the winner, which is The Power by Naomi Alderman. I like this cover. I don't like all of these things going on. I actually had a discussion with a friend there, because I showed that friend the UK cover, and I was like, which one do you like better? And we both like this one better, without these sticker things. Like, I mean, why is it that almost all book readers don't like these, like, unremovable, especially? I mean, it tells us something, right? Like, but this obviously was a former library book. I want to show you something cute about the Rachel Kushner book, and then I'll move on. This was a library book, and the last time it was checked out was in 2003. And how do I know? Because even in 2003, the library that this book belonged to then, 2013, not 3. The library that it belonged to was still using this like stamp in and stamp out system instead of, for instance, this, which is a barcode. And the reason that sticker is there for this, which is a different library. Okay, that's it for my Portland haul. Now for the somewhat excessive current haul from the Friends of the Library. I'm like, next time I go to the Friends of the Library, my local, I'm going to say I'm going to buy 20 books, no less than 20 books. Because I think if I do that, then I'll just be like, I only want 2. I think actually the reverse psychology will be more limiting. Anyway, The President and the Frog by Carolina de Roberts is political fiction, some unknown country in Latin America. I hauled it. I'd seen it several times because it a little bit reminded me of the real history of Costaguana. And it is, as I found out that Nostromo was kind of an unnamed Latin American, well, Costaguana was, everyone knew what it was, but it was like this fictional name of a place so that Joseph Conrad could, write criticism about, colonization and political corruption in the region. Anyway, that's why I hold this book. It was on my mind, and this is kind of a similar vibe, probably a much different book, much more contemporary. This book was published in 2021, and it's fantastic. Like, I love the space. It's not just the font, it's the space between, it's the contrast that really something about how I get headaches. So I could definitely just read this physical copy of a book, which really excites me because I don't get to read as much of the physical copies of book. I'll stop rambling and show you this. I would have held this book for the display. It's horror / fantasy. This is Amanda Ross's In the House of Transcendence. And it's got, you know, yellow sprayed edges, and they're just, I would have held this book anyway, but there was just something like about, I don't know, it's creepy season, and I have zero interest in sort of creepy books. And then the first thing I thought when I grabbed this book is, oh, there's my creepy book for creepy season. And then I thought, I want that as a display book. So I'm not going to read it during creepy season. It's kind of over anyway. I mean, we're moving into November, and it's a very recent haul, and I need to remember that it's really easy to be like, there, I just, like, this is close to me now, and I want to read it now. So I will forego maybe reading this more expediently, and leave it on display at least through creepy, at least through the creepy season. Okay, All the Birds in the Sky. This is another book that I've seen several times, and I decided not to get it. And for some reason, because I was being excessive today, I think, I just decided to get it. It's speculative fantasy. Yeah. And for some reason, I've been like, oh, let me give fantasy a try over and over without reading any fantasy. So here's another. It's by Charlie Jane Anders. And it's apparently, you know, the winner of the Nebula Award, which is the side. What did I read? A Long Way from a Small Angry Planet, I think, also got that award, which I enjoyed just fine. The amount of reference to Douglas Adams, who, by the way, how can I say I'm not a speculative and/or sci-fi reader when, if you took Douglas Adams out of my life as a young reader, I would, you know, who would I be? Who would I be? Anyway. The Hairdresser of Harare by Tanadi Huchu. This is a Zimbabwean book. It's from a Zimbabwean press. It is not even cracked. Like, I don't even want to open it. There is no digital copy of this book. I'm going to have to read it in the physical. I can tell now that I'm going to need natural light. And if I don't, I'm going to actually put a timer on this book, because I know to whom I will give this book. Someone who's very into hair, who likes light and cozy, prefers light and cozy. They don't want anything too deep. And I'm not sure this is light and cozy, but it gives those vibes, doesn't it? Yeah. And who would also really appreciate maybe access to a book published by a Zimbabwean author, published in Zimbabwe. All right. The Moonlight and the Pearler's Daughter by Lizzie Pook. Is this another speculative? What was I doing? I was being very speculative. This is an Australian, I believe. An Australian author, and I was actually listening to some Australian booktube recently and thought, you know, I've only read a couple of Australian authors, and they did, like, it wasn't right for me, so I need to give more a try. Okay, Ed and Glassy, I started in the summer and I haven't finished, and I absolutely will finish that book, and I thought that book was great. I don't quite know what's going on with Lizzie Pook, but I was definitely buying books for their cover today, and this said, buy me, because it's so beautiful. And it came via the UK. It was bought in the pound. So it's also not like it. If I read it digitally, it'll still look like a brand new book. If I read it physically, I'll have to crack that spine. Okay. A Family Life by Akhil Sharma. This is an Indian author. I have a lot of female Indian authors. I'm going to judge from the title that it's a family drama, a domestic fiction. I tend to like those. I really tend to like domestic lit fic. So, I mean, it's one of the 10 best books of 2014, according to the New York Times Book Review. I thought, again, I was being excessive today, that I'd give it a try. Oh, this caused so much discussion because someone had read it and then lost their copy. And I said, well, when I'm done with it, like, I'll probably see you again here and I'll give you this copy. However, when will I be done with this? This is The Elegance of the Hedgehog. It was a really beloved book that many years ago. I'm totally late to the game, even for Europa Press, right? But I'm building, I guess, my Europa Press collection, and whomever donated, like, it's now my third from this Friends of the Library. No, my second. But it's my third recent one. This Muriel Barbary is, I believe, French. This is translated from the French. And this book came out, like, I'm so careful to not even crack the spine until I'm ready to leave. I'm sorry, the spine hasn't even been cracked. 2008. Yeah, the translation was even 2008. So it's old. Super excited. Speaking of French, Forgetting is another French author by Frederica Amelia Finkelstein. I believe the setting is Paris 2010. This book recently came out 2023. The translator is written too small. Translated by Isabel Coot and Christopher Elson. There's two translators. Let me tell you the translator of this book. It matters. Alison Anderson. Translated from the French by Alison Anderson. I think I did look this up on Goodreads. It doesn't get great reviews. I don't care why. Sometimes the books that don't get great reviews are the ones that I'm really into. My guess, from the vibe, it's too weird. And it could also be that just the translation just doesn't do it justice. But I'm always happy to try. Like, I'll give more, just to find a book that's been translated in this thrifting ecosystem already is pretty glorious. So I will give it a try, and it's not that much of a commitment. So if it's too weird, I don't like it, it goes back where it came. Okay, do I regret this? Maybe. This is Foreign Bodies by Cynthia Ozick. I have never read any Cynthia Ozick. She's written plenty of books. I have passed her up many times. She's got many an acclaim, many an award. I passed her up many times, and the reason that since I was being excessive today, I just had found these two books, these French books, and then along came the Eiffel Tower, and I thought, I want to give this author a chance. I might even want to give this book a chance. I don't know that much about it, but the author, yes. I want to give this author a chance. This, again, doesn't feel like that big of a commitment. It felt like it went in today's haul. You can tell I'm being excessive because I hauled this John Banville. I just finished a John Banville. I just talked about, would I ever want to read him again? Question mark, question mark. His writing was outstanding. I struggled with the sexism. I talked about this quite a bit to the folks at the Friends of the Library of, like, I don't know, it's so distracting. Can I really, like, will I, should I forgive? It was done a little bit intentionally in the sea, but I had feelings. This book is such a, I was buying books for their covers. This was a beautiful book. I'm one of those deckled edge lovers. I love deckled edges. I know some people do, some people don't. This is actually third in a trilogy. And if I get into it and I'm like, wait, I can't pick up whatever two books were supposed to happen and I was supposed to learn from them, I needed to know. I'm not a trilogy. I'm not a series reader right now in my life anyway. So I guess that will be a quick on haul, and somebody else might be really happy to have this beautiful book. The Happy Marriage by Tahar Ben Jelloun. Okay, this is my second Tahar Ben Jelloun book. The other one is This Blinding Absence of Light, which is a very old book, and it doesn't have a digital version. The Happy Marriage is newer, but not that new. And definitely has a digital version. This is in translation from, I believe, the Arabic. This person's from Fez, Morocco, by Andre Nafis Sahli. Yeah, this is now the second book by this author that I've come into recently, and I believe it will be more likely and easier for me to give this book a try first, and then if I'm really feeling it, then I will, figure out what, if the font in this Blinding Absence of Light will work for me, and read it. If not, I can unhaul them both. Okay, last but not least, I just want to show you something, okay? These books have the same name and almost the same cover. This one I hauled before, and I actually thought I was hauling this. And then I saw this a few times, and I'm like, why does that one look slightly different? And my mind, I swear I know. I mean, I'm not like looking up every book. I don't like to do that, but I know a little bit about books and authors. Ellen Kullhead is Swedish, and this is a book in translation. And I know that I knew that when I got it, but I think it's because of those similarities that my brain got it conflated so much that, yeah, it was just conflation all around. This translation was by Jennifer Hayashida, and this book I hauled. In fact, I've damaged on my bookshelf, and I'm deeply, deeply regretful and sorry, because this was also in brand new condition when I hauled it. And I somehow, when putting it on my bookshelf or taking it off, caused a little damage. So my books are not really tightly fit on my bookshelf. So I don't know how that happened, but it's whatever. Let's let this one go. Because the one that, I'm not unhauling it. I'm just saying I'm not going to. This is like Sylvia Plath retelling, Bell Jar maybe retelling. And it's a Swedish author. It's a book in translation. I'm here for it. It's a different book, though, than this one, which is a women's prize, maybe winner, at least short or long lister. Definitely won the Kirkus Prize. It's toting that, by Lily King. So I have 2 Lily Kings in my recent hauls, and this one definitely is a women's prize, so it'll go sort of in my pile of women's prize possibilities when I get there. And this one is the one that I thought that I was getting. In any case, I now have them both, and maybe wouldn't it be fun to read them back to back, or would I continue to be completely conflated? Like, which Euphoria am I talking about? Translated Euphoria or Lily King's Euphoria? In any case, I thought that was fantastic to kind of get them next to each other, so to make my brain stop being like, wait, what am I talking about? And I have many books, so let's see when I get around to reading either or both.